Hello there. Dr. Bill Crawford here, psychologist, speaker, author of 8 books, host of 2 PBS specials. Here again to bring you another tip on how to help you create the life you want. Specifically, how to use my life from the top of the mind philosophy to bring more clarity, confidence, creativity into everything you do. Today I want to show you something to do whenever you feel stressed or anxious or frustrated or annoyed or some way that you don't want to feel and you can't seem to get out of it. Just kind of find yourself kind of trapped in that feeling. This is something I teach when I do my trainings, but in my trainings, which is normally like a half day, I'm teaching my entire system. So while I do teach this particular model, I don't have time to go through it in the way that I'm about to. And I think I may be doing you and even some of my clients a disservice. Because sometimes my clients, I'll be working with them on a regular basis and they'll say, I still get anxious and stressed and frustrated. And I say, well, I don't know, have you tried the brain model? The model that I'm going to show you actually spells brain. They go, well, I've tried the breathing, but it doesn't help. Then I say, have you tried this? And I walk them through the model and they go, oh, no, I haven't been doing that. So what I want to do for those of you who are interested in changing how you think and feel by actually shifting from this old reactive brain to this clear, confident, creative brain that I call the top of the mind. For those of you who follow my life from the top of the mind philosophy, you know that I help people understand how we think and feel and act based on how the brain processes information. So we got the lower brain, that's the brainstem. That's the fight or flight part of the brain. Got the upper 80% of the neocortex. This is where we have access to our interpersonal skills, problem-solving skills, clarity, confidence, creativity, etc. And we got this middle brain, limbic system. And the limbic system is interesting because it's the scanner, processor, router part of the brain. It's scanning the environment and it has a tendency to scan the environment looking for the negative. Because as long as we've been on the planet, the role of the middle brain has been to keep us alive. So it has a tendency to think, okay, what do we need to be worried about? What do we need to be anxious about? Unfortunately, it's not very smart and it's working with old software. So it's having a tendency to misinterpret something or someone negative as dangerous and throws us into the part of the brain that's designed to deal with danger. Like if someone were attacking us or somebody slammed on their brakes in front of us or someone's breaking into the house, well, that lower brain would be a perfect part of the brain to go to. But trying to deal with life, especially change how we feel when we're feeling anxious, stressed, frustrated, is really hard when we're in the lower brain because the lower brain is all about feeling anxious, stressed, and frustrated, which again would be perfect if someone were breaking into the house. So what I do, I have a 3-step system. First part of the system is how do I shift from this lower brain to the upper brain and actually change the chemical makeup of my brain and body from adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, the stress hormones, to serotonin and endorphins, the chemicals that help us think better and feel better. Then part 2 of the system, part 2 of the book, what I teach when I go out and do my seminars is, all right, now that we know how to get to the top of the mind, how do we stay there? How do we rewire the brain? That's a little bit more challenging, takes a little bit more time. And then part 3, which is the hardest part of the system, how do I get other people to shift from their resistant brain to their receptive brain so they truly hear and understand what I'm wanting them to know? All of that is determined by and built upon whether or not we can actually shift from the lower brain to the upper brain and begin to regain control of how we're thinking and feeling, plus the chemical makeup of our brain and body. So I'm going to walk you through the brain model so you know exactly what to do when you feel anxious, stressed, and frustrated, and how it looks. It does spell brain. Breathe, relax, ask, imagine, notice. So the breathing and relaxing, that's the part that allows the top of the mind to regain control. I'm going to be ticking off the numbers on my hand and counting while I'm doing that, because there's only one part of the brain that can count, and it gives this upper 80% of the brain something to do. And what is happening is I'm allowing the upper 80% of the brain to regain control by literally taking over a function, breathing, normally controlled by the lower brain. Then I say the word relax on the exhale. And that is designed to kind of give a command to my muscles to relax. You want to move your shoulders back a little bit when you do that. We carry a lot of our stress and anxiety in the back of our neck and shoulders. So now the breathing and relaxing has the upper 80% of the brain regaining control by literally taking over 2 functions, muscle tension and breathing, normally controlled by the lower brain. Most people know this in some form of breathing. There's a lot of meditation, something called the box breathing that adds a thing at the very end. And most people go, okay, got that. But they stop there. And that doesn't change a lot. It just kind of puts us in a position to make the change. So B and R are the brain model. A is ask. Here's where we ask ourselves some very purposeful, powerful questions. Number one, am I feeling stressed, anxious, frustrated on purpose? No. Is this really working for me? Is this helping me create the life I want? No. Is this how I want to be defined? Do I want to define myself as someone who's stressed, anxious, frustrated? No. And would I teach or recommend this to someone I love? Absolutely not. So what that does is allow us to have the upper 80% of the brain make a determination that how I'm feeling and thinking doesn't meet what I call the 4 criteria. Purposeful, effective, defines me the way I want to be defined, and what I would teach to someone I love. So then you don't just stop by knowing what you don't want. This is where you shift from a focus on the problem to a focus on the solution. You say, okay, what if I were choosing qualities or characteristics right now that meet the 4 criteria? More purposeful, I'd chosen them on purpose. Something that I think can be effective in helping me create the life I want. Something that defines me the way I want to be defined, kind of makes the statement I want to make about who I am, and something I would teach or recommend to someone I love. What would that look like? So how about like clear, confident, creative, and happy? Great. So now we know where we're going. It doesn't get us there yet, but now we have a vision of the solution. We're not just focusing on trying to stop the problem. So then, B-R-A-I, I say, I want to imagine a time in the past when I was feeling clear, confident, creative, and happy. What did that feel like? What did that look like? Who am I when I'm feeling clear, confident, creative, and happy? What's my tone of voice like? What's my body language like? You want to hold an image in your mind of who you are when you're coming from these 4 or any qualities or characteristics you choose. That's important because the brain doesn't know the difference between a real and an imagined event. So it will start to change the chemical makeup of your brain and body from adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol to serotonin and endorphins, and that's the imagining part of the process. Then you notice a change. B-R-A-I-N, breathe, relax, ask, imagine, notice. Do I feel any differently at the end of this model than I did at the very beginning? I'm going to suggest you will feel more calm, more confident, more in control. So that you know what to do and what this looks like, I'm going to walk you through this so you kind of get a sense of the entire model. Looks like this. By the way, I'm going to close my eyes because when I close my eyes, it kind of helps me focus inward and it takes some of the external stuff away. You can do that if you want, but I would suggest it. So it looks like this. Relax. Relax. That's the B and the R. You do that enough times until you feel a little bit better. It's not going to change everything, but you want to feel a little bit more in control. And notice I'm making noise. And I'm counting while I'm doing it and ticking it off on your fingers. Then I ask, okay, am I feeling anxious, stressed, frustrated on purpose? Is it working for me? Is this how I want to be defined? Would I teach it to someone I love? No. All right. So if I were choosing qualities or characteristics that meet the 4 criteria, purposeful, effective, defines me the way I want to be defined in a way I would teach to someone I love, what would that look like? What would it be? Clear, confident, creative, happy. Great. Now I know where I want to go. Now, I imagine a time in the past when I was feeling clear, confident, creative, and happy. So where was I? What kind of setting was I in? What was the temperature of the air? Did I smell any aromas? If I touched some texture, what would it feel like? What were the sounds I was hearing? So I want to use all of my 5 senses to make that imaginary experience as powerful as possible. If you can't remember a time in the past when you're feeling that way, just ask yourself the question, okay, what if I were feeling more clear, confident, creative, and happy? What would that do to my state of mind and how I would engage people? So I got that imaginary experience in my mind. I got that. Now I notice the change. Is this really, I'm feeling differently? Of course, because you can't breathe, relax, count while you're doing it. Ask those questions, imagine feeling that without changing the chemical makeup of your brain and body. So that's what the brain model is all about. It spells brain because it's all about understanding how the brain works and allowing you to shift from the lower brain to the upper brain. Now, once you shift to the upper 80% of the brain, you might want to understand, how do I stay there? How do I rewire the brain in a relatively short amount of time to make this top of the mind, upper 80% of the brain, my default position, kind of what I bring to life? That's what I get to go around the world teaching. It's what my book is all about. So if that's something you want me to come and teach to your organization, and also how do you deal with these difficult people? How do you get them to shift from their resistant brain to the receptive brain? All you got to do is go to my website, Bill Crawford, Ph.D. .com, and hit the contact button, or just Google Bill Crawford, Ph.D. I'll come up on the first page. Hit the contact button. Let me know what you're interested in, and I'd love to talk with you about that. In the meantime, if you're liking these videos, please hit the like button, share them with your friends. Feel free to subscribe. I try to put one of these on every week. So if you like them, you'll get one every week. In the meantime, here's to you, bringing more clarity, confidence, creativity, and happiness to everything you do. And I look forward to seeing you in the future.